Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Hey Blondie. For many years, I was the opening bartender for the weekend breakfast at a country club in a gated community for active adults. Technically, it was 65 and up, although up to 10% of the population could be 55 to 64. However, that was never an issue. I would say most were 70 and up. I've never minded customers who were picky and complicated, as long as they weren't jerks. I've learned how to put up with a lot. My goal was to give everyone exactly what they wanted, as efficiently as possible. And since the majority of the clientele were regulars, it became fairly easy to remember everyone's particulars. I had a regular in his mid to late 70s, who was a cranky old thing, but harmless. His ribbing was easy to ignore for the most part. I knew what he wanted, got it out, got my tip, and carried on. Sometimes we even got along. He was either by himself, with a friend from outside the community, with his 2 sons, or the whole lot of them. Despite being a brunette, he always called me, and most other women working, Blondie, or a universal name apparently. Hey Blondie, get me a top off. Hey Blondie, I need some more ketchup. And he was just generally pessimistic, like someone had messed with his Cheerios. His sons always gave me apologetic looks. I would shrug or laugh something off, and they'd tip me a bit extra. He would tap his coffee cup if he needed a refill. I don't mind. Don't need to get in a whole conversation. I get in, get out, and on to checking the next table. I would always fill a cup to about a 3/4 inch from the top. Seemed reasonable, and no one had ever complained. These aren't large cups, but it was enough room to add cream or sugar, or to just not spill on yourself. After a year or two, that was no longer acceptable. He randomly started making comments about how I, or others, didn't know how to fill a cup up. I would usually smile, joke, and add a bit more. But one morning, it was slammed. I was bartending with a fairly full bar, taking to-go orders on the phone, getting the golfers food or drinks after their first 9, and had 2 4-tops in addition to that. Of course, he wanted my section. It was busy, but I was sailing. Getting to work at 6:30 AM didn't always have me in the best mood, but one musters through. Fake it till you make it. But all 4 of them were there, and he had an audience to whom he could show off his condescending comments. His mighty progress cutting down a 25-year-old woman and putting her in her place. He had always complained about my inability to pour a proper cup of coffee. I was going to greet a table when all of a sudden he says, "Hey Blondie," and taps on his cup. So with a nasty grin, I filled it to the very tip top, not even a drop spilling out. His son's eyes grew large. He started to sputter, trying to eloquently say that's not what he wanted. No sir, I never know how to fill up a cup. Wouldn't want to have that, he grumbled, of course. And his son's eyes finally started twinkling. They finished their food, paid, and left. He never did complain again about my inability to refill his coffee. The next story is called Company Hardware. In a previous job, I worked in a company that was regulated by multiple powerful government agencies. When they asked for something, they wanted pronto. And if the delay was too long, they'd rather have us shut down business rather than wait for data, information, or prototypes. I was given my company phone that I had to take everywhere with me, rotating on-call periods. But I'm expected to be available if things hit the fan. The phone was a special kind of a phone from a fruit company. It wasn't a US-based model. It had 2 different networks, and with some expert tech in it, could jump on whichever was stronger, and maybe even use both at the same time. I'm not sure, but it was good. Needless to say, it should have been pretty expensive. I love nature. I can and have gone camping, oftentimes in remote places, and gone a few days without seeing another human. 18 months into the job, there was a new schedule, where I got 3 days of being on call and expected to work a regular 8-hour day, having to live within 20 minutes of work, and then 4 days off being off. This worked pretty amazing for me. As soon as the next on-call team doing and maintaining the same work from our department got on, I'd be off on a plane to get another national park under my belt or some remote state parks or whatever I had my sight on. I thought it would be helpful to carry the company phone I was given along with me in case I was needed. In the year and a half, I was never contacted for not being on call, as we had a strong culture of communications and the team knew what they had to know in order to troubleshoot. But nevertheless, I took the company phone along with me. During the trip, the screen got damaged. Not so much that the phone was inoperable, but definitely difficult to use. Got back, went through the forms, and got IT to repair or give me another one. Some manager high up in IT went off and was going on and on and on about how expensive those devices were, how difficult it was to configure them, and how much harder it was to get them in the US and all that. Then she told me I am not to take the company phone and hardware along with me wherever I go. It is supposed to go between my residence and the office and nowhere else. And she was pretty derogatory about it. I shot off an email later, keeping my manager in the loop and the department head about confirming what she said. A few weeks later, I took my PTO. PTO policy was pretty good, and thus I took off for 3 weeks and still had over 3 weeks remaining. I did not take any of the company hardware along with me, as per what was stated by some manager who was somewhere in the organizational chart in IT and decently high up. An all hands on deck situation arose. My manager was upset at me not being able to answer the company phone. It wasn't like I was in the woods. And a very difficult delivery. I took care of my cousin, while her husband looked after the kids. Manager had to get me on my own phone, and she had to go through some of my work friends for my personal phone, since I was pretty good at not giving out my personal contact info to people at work. Why aren't you answering the company phone? I'm not at home. Don't have my company phone with me. Never mind. Get back online immediately. We have an all hands on deck situation. Sorry, I do not have any of the company's hardware with me. Manager started to rage into the phone. So I said, this manager in IT said I wasn't to take company hardware along with me wherever I go. What? When did this happen? I sent an email stating what she said and kept you and our department head in CC. Manager goes through her email, finds it, and a bunch of more expletives come from her. You need to come back immediately. Sorry, no can do. My cousin's still pretty down from a very difficult twin pregnancy. I'm taking care of her, and I was pretty clear about it before going on PTO. I wouldn't be able to come back. The manager cuts off the call and calls me back 30 minutes later. Do you have anyone who has keys to your apartment? Yes. Give me their contact. I'm going to get the computer and a screen and other hardware shipped to you before night, and you can get back. We have a serious situation. Can I get more PTO to compensate for this intrusion? Knowing I had the slightly upper hand, I was striking when the metal's hot. Sure, I'll send an email approving this. By 8 PM, I got my company phone, computer and other hardware shipped to me. I also got 2 emails. One email approving the extended PTO for this intrusion. The second email from my department head, stating that the original company policy is still in effect. In fact, a new policy has been put in place for some employees to have their company hardware with them, even on PTO. Anything else said by anyone else was to be disregarded. And as a cherry on top, that IT manager was in CC. When I returned from my PTO, that IT manager was nowhere to be seen. Turns out she had been demoted. She couldn't digest that and quit. The company had to spend over 6K to ship it on the same day and get the hardware to me. The last story is called Problem Solved. I work in retail. Recently we have changed the layout within our store. I'm on the customer service end, taking third-party returns within our store. The layout changed many things. One of the things was where my return area was located. The third-party returns moved to the old customer service desk, and the store returns moved to the front registers. I was tasked with taking these returns as well as taking care of online purchases that are too big to be upfront for the customers themselves to take. Many rumors spread about our phone systems. Some employees said the phones were moving up to the registers where customer service is. Some said they were staying at the third-party desk. I was getting called out for not answering every phone call that came through the system due to long lines at my return area. I asked my manager how to handle it. I do not mind answering calls. However, if I can't get to them due to a line, I won't answer them. Manager told me how to handle the phones and address the rumors. The phones would stay at my return area. Fast forward to my next shift. Any call I am able to answer, I make an announcement for who it is for on the radio. If nobody in that department answers the call and the phone system kicks the call back to me, I ignore the call. I did my job. I answered the phones per the manager's request and redirected the call. If no one else answers, it is not my fault. I did not want the phones where I am, due to me not being able to answer 90% of the calls, as they were for a different department. Problem solved. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.